is Father Christ Shadid. I'm an Orthodox priest at the Antiochian Village Camp here in western Pennsylvania, and I'm also a licensed social worker here in Pennsylvania, working in the field of mental health. I work with people of all ages and backgrounds, with all different kinds of mental health issues, especially depression and anxiety, but also many others as well. And I'd like to talk to you today for just a few minutes about how do we keep ourselves mentally healthy, especially in a time like this, in the wake of the coronavirus, when our lives have been turned upside down and we have so many different things going on. Well, quite honestly, it's really an art with how we deal with ourselves and keeping ourselves mentally healthy through all of this. And when I say art, I mean A-R-T. A, meaning that we acknowledge and accept our feelings and what's going on. R, meaning that we dig to the root of what's going on. And T, utilizing the toolboxes that we have, both from the church and from ourselves. So step one is acknowledging and accepting our feelings by putting a name to how we feel and accepting how we feel and realizing that it's okay with how we feel. What matters is what we do with those feelings. And the two most common right now are really depression and anxiety, or sadness. So step two is asking ourselves why. Why do I feel this way? And digging to the root of what's really going on. So maybe I'm feeling depressed or sad because I don't get to see my friends quite as often, and I feel really cooped up here at home. Or I'm not getting to go to my senior prom, or my senior recital or ball. Or I'm having to miss out on my spring season for sports or music, something that I've been working so hard for, or really looking forward to. And when we really get to the roots of depression and anxiety, we can see that typically, for depression at least, the root is hopelessness and despair, and the root of anxiety is typically fear. So how do we deal with them? Well, that takes us to step three, and that is using the toolboxes which we have available to us. So let's start with the church and her toolbox, because we've got to realize that the church has been studying us for 2,000 years, so she really knows what we need as human beings. So for instance, the church gives us things like confession, prayer, the scriptures, the Holy Fathers, divine services, many of the other sacraments, all these different things that the church gives us so that we can deal with however we're feeling. And so it's important for us to take advantage of these things, to talk with our Orthodox friends, our aunts, our uncles, people who we normally see at church, that social network of Orthodox Christians to keep us rooted and grounded in the faith. And obviously it's harder in a time like today where we have social distancing and we have to stay home, and we're often not even able to even go to the church services because we're trying to keep everybody safe from this virus that's spreading so quickly. So a lot of our churches have been doing a lot of extra things online to offer us resources. A lot of them are live streaming services. A lot of times they'll have Ask the Priest questions online, or other things online just like this video is meant to help. And so we have to take advantage of these different things. But it's important for us to participate as much as possible. So if we participate in a service that's being live streamed by our local church, we shouldn't just sit there in our pajamas and watch the service with our phones right next to us. We want to pretend as much as possible that we are there participating as much as we can. So dress up like you normally would for church. Put on your shirt and tie, or your dress or your skirt, or whatever it is that you wear to church. Light a candle and put it in front of the TV or the computer screen, however you're participating. Put your phones in the other room so that you're not tempted to check email or text messages. And really make sure that you're paying attention to the service and participating, singing along with the chanters and the choir. Go to a room that has icons in it so that you can focus better. It's also important for us to take advantage of our own toolboxes, and we all have different toolboxes. And what I mean by that is utilizing what we call in the mental health field coping mechanisms. And what that means is identifying tools that we each have that calm us down and make us feel better and help us relieve things like stress. So some really common examples of coping mechanisms are listening to music or making music, watching movies or television, writing in a journal or writing poetry, exercising, playing with your pets, drawing, coloring, singing. all these different things and realize that we all have different toolboxes. So what works for me might not work for you, and what works for you might not work for me. So we each have to identify those things that work for us that are healthy coping mechanisms so that we might utilize those when we start to feel stressed or cooped up or sad. It's also important for us to create some structure in our days. School and work schedules often do this already for us. And structures in our days help us feel accomplished and give us a sense of purpose. So for instance, maybe from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., I decide I'm going to do some schoolwork, and then I'll have lunch. And then from 1 to 2 p.m., I'm going to go exercise. Then from 2 to 3 p.m., I'm going to write in my journal or write how I feel. And then from 3 to 4 p.m., I'm going to spend time with my family. And then from 4 to 5 p.m., I'm going to help my parents make dinner. And then so on and so on. And so like I said, making that structure in our day, first of all, gives us balance. Second of, so that we're not doing the same thing like playing video games all day. Second of all, it gives us that sense of accomplishment and purpose, which we so desperately need. So when we talk about things like depression and anxiety, well, depression results from hopelessness and despair. So how do we as Orthodox Christians respond to that? Well, we have hope in the resurrection. And we're hopeful because Christ defeated death by death. And he opened the gates of paradise so that we might be able to spend eternity with him. So we have that hope in the resurrection. And with anxiety, the root of that is fear. But we have nothing to fear if we have hope in the resurrection. When we talk about fear, we only need to look at the first book of John, chapter 4, verse 18, where he says, perfect love casts out fear. And what does perfect love mean? That means that we have love like Christ loves. That love in that we hope so beautifully in the hope of the resurrection, and that we have that trust in Christ. Because the more we love, the less there is to fear. Just look at the martyrs and all the saints. So often they went to their physical deaths willingly because there was nothing to fear, because they knew that no matter what people did to them, even if they took their physical life, that they had that hope in the resurrection, that on the other side it was better than what was here. And so if we have that perfect love the way Christ loves, there's nothing to fear at all. So we as Christians must also look at the positives. So what are some positives that we can see today in the wake of the coronavirus? Yes, it's tough that we're stuck at home so often, but there are some bright spots there too. For instance, families are spending a lot more time together and playing games together and going on walks together and eating dinners together. Maybe you have time to learn a new skill that you've wanted to learn. Maybe you can have a little more time to FaceTime your friends or family who live far away. Maybe you can even sleep in a little bit. And as the weather gets nicer, hopefully we can spend a little more time outside and get some fresh air and exercise. So if we want to stay mentally healthy through all of this, and spiritually healthy as well, we should do that art, like I said. So number one, acknowledge and accept our feelings and talk about it. Number two, dig to the root of our feelings and explore why we feel that way. And number three, utilize the toolboxes, both from the church and from ourselves, that we have. And if we maintain our trust in God, then we will certainly get through this. I wish you all mental and spiritual health as we work through this and as we journey towards the resurrection and Pascha. And may God bless you all. Thank you.